into its upper-middle-class echelons in 1862 as the daughter of George Frederick and Lucretia Rhinelander Jones. Within what has been described as a closely knit community of cousins, the Joneses brushed shoulders with Schermerhorns, Rhinelanders, Newbolds, Astors, and other wealthy and socially distinguished relatives and in-laws. This was the society with which the adolescent and debutante Edith Jones became familiar, at the great balls held at Delmonico's during the season, at concerts and the opera, at ceremonial lunches and dinners. But it is not, the point is worth stressing, the society mirrored in the House of Mirth. Edith Wharton's own vanished New York was portrayed in The Age of Innocence, written in 1920 and looking back to the 1870s, and its disappearance is that handsome novel's central and ambiguously nostalgic motif. For the House of Mirth, Mrs. Wharton concentrated instead on a social world larger, showier, morally much looser, and even richer than the Joneses set. The new breed, as the longer-established folk called them, the ultra-fashionable dancing people, in a phrase of the 1880s. Edith Jones had come to know an early phase of this scene when she was being courted by young Harry Stevens, whose mother, Mrs. Perrin Stevens, was one of the most energetic and conspicuous hostesses of the era. She sought, with some success, to move between the Fifth Avenue dancing people and the loftier social enclave of Schermerhorns and Rhinelanders. But Edith's kin persistently snubbed her, and it was on Mrs. Stevens's demand that the engagement between Miss Jones and Mr. Stevens was called off, a victim of New York social warfare. The novelist-to-be, meanwhile, had carefully taken the measure of that fashionable world, and by the early 1900s, the writer of fiction could observe with ironic amusement that the old and the new were blurring together. In the House of Mirth, Bertie van Osburgh, heir apparent to the oldest Dutch-descended portion of the old guard, does not scruple to drop in of an evening at the crudely opulent hotel apartment of the arriviste Norma Hatch. This indistinctly outlined but primarily light-minded and aimlessly wasteful society, then, was the New York that Edith Wharton took it upon herself to do. It was a bold commitment. New York had provided various scenic settings for Henry James and William Dean Howells, and, though Edith Wharton did not yet know their work, for Stephen Crane and Theodore Dreiser. But in no instance had New York been a novel's chief character, and in the New York of the early 1900s that Edith Wharton knew best, a society of irresponsible pleasure-seekers, as she put it in her autobiography of 1934. She had chosen a protagonist essentially incapable of serious and significant action. This problem she recognized clearly enough, and the answer she came to, as she recalled, was that a frivolous society can acquire significance through what its frivolity destroys. The answer, in short, was Lily Bart. She had yet to determine the defining nature of the destructive element, or rather she had yet to see how it might be effectively rendered by the arts of narrative. What began to press on her imagination as the permeating, the doable quality of the mirth-loving society was its theatricality. Edith Wharton was not alone in detecting a large amount of the theatrical in the turn-of-the-century urban atmosphere. All the writers just named, and one could add others, drew upon stage performances as fact and metaphor of city life, as sources of enjoyment, and as purveyors and reflectors of illusion. The stage was thought to have a shaping influence, for the most part a bad one, on youthful character and conduct, in much the way television is thought to have in our day. But no one saw more deeply into the implications of the phenomenon than Edith Wharton. This was due in part to the fact that, as it happened, she was developing and exercising a strong histrionic awareness during the time when the House of Mirth was coming into being.